Okay, this is dissociative disorders, which is one of my favorite. I shouldn't say favorite because I don't want to devalue it for the people suffering with these disorders. But a dissociative disorder is one person who is displaying alteration or detachment in their consciousness or identity. They're, they have a change of identity, or they're not aware who they are. I mean, most of us have this, sometime in our life, wondering what we're going to do, what's going to happen when we grow up. I'm still worrying about thinking about that. But the idea is when this becomes too severe, then we have a problem. In the DSM-4, they had depersonalization and derealization. In the DSM-5, they put them together. Now, depersonalization is the sense, is a lost sense of your own reality, detachment from reality. Um, you know, maybe seeing yourself. You're, you're laying in bed and you can see yourself laying in bed. It's when I don't know how to describe that, but you mean the idea of you're two of you or different place. And then derealization is more severe, and reality of the outside world is lost. Things change. Things had change shape. You don't recognize people you know. You don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. So the fact is, now in the DSM-5, these two have been put together under depersonalization, derealization disorder. So you have a feeling of unreality that is so severe and frightening that they dominate an individual's life and prevent normal functioning. I plus distress, right? Um, Failure as part of feelings of depersonalization are part of several different other disorders, especially if you get to schizophrenia. Um, and like I said, is we have freshmen that come to college and they try out different identities before they realize that's not them. Um, you know, in high school, you're going to be the NFL and things like that. Well, those are minor, but I mean, we're talking about major disruption in identity or loss of identity. Um, Dissociative amnesia has gone through a lot of different name changes. When I was your age, and I know that was a long time ago, it was called psychogenic fugue. Oh, I love that term. If I was going to have a rock group, it would be Julian and the Psychogenic Fugues. Um, and basically, it's people who are unable to remember anything, including who they are. It's generalized amnesia. Um, and this can be attributed to a physical problem. Uh, um, and of course, you can have amnesia that has nothing to do with dissociative, disorders. It's a localized or selective amnesia, selective amnesia. Um, Failure to recall specific events, usually traumatic during a specific period of time. Like I said, it used to be called psychogenic fugue, then it was called fugue disorder, and then the DSM-5 goes, what the word fugue? So it's now called dissociative amnesia. Remember, that separates it from amnesia, dissociative amnesia. You have a flight, you have flight, not bird flight, but you leave your environment and with amnesia. And by flight, I mean you go to some other place and you don't know who you are, um, and you start a whole new identity. And One of the problems is we have a lot of, it's very common in females, and we have a lot of females who run away from home because of a terrible home situation, and they could be actually have dissociative disorder and not just running away. It's very hard to tell. And it's usually due to some major stressor and a loss of identity. Anybody recall parts of their own identity or parts of their own adulthood. They don't remember their parents. They develop a whole new life. Um, I mean, so it's kind of a scary situation. Um, Basically, there's a case where somebody was supposed to go get some milk. He never showed up. His wife called, and a couple years, and they had to move to a different town. He had a wallet, but that didn't make a difference. And he moved to a different town, and he started a whole new life, and he made up a whole new history. Um, then they have dissociative trance disorder, which again is some question about this. It's not usually in Western societies. Some people rejected it being the DSM-5. It's when a trance-like state, like a shaman or somebody hallucinating, a voodoo person, um, sometimes linked with possession by the devil or hypnotic traits. Um, Symptoms resemble those of other dissociative disorders. Not you don't know who you are at that time and period of time. Again, it's more common in women. Um, it's only abnormal if behavior is undesirable or pathological. So if you have a medium talking to dead people, um, and that's their job, it's not abnormal because it's not pathological or undesirable. And then the final one, and this was talked about being kicked out because it's so rare, is DID, dissociative identity disorder, which we used to know as mobile personalities. But because of media, the DSM changed the name of it. By media was, during sweep weeks on TV, Oprah, any of these talk shows, Dr. Phil, and all that kind of, they would get somebody with a DID, supposedly with DID, most multiple personalities, and they would have them come on, and talk to the audience, and they say, "Okay, Bill, be Larry," and he would lower his head, and then he would come, and he'd be Larry with a different voice. Well, if in reality, if you actually have DID, you can't call another alter anytime you want. So there's some question about it's so rare that they thought about doing away with it, but um, they decided to keep it. Um, you have a different body and mind. We call it an alter, and usually the average person with DID has 15 different people. It doesn't have to be 15. I think the book said 19, or I said 19. It should be 15. Anyway, there's some that have over 100. Imagine that, Lord. Um, each with their own behavior. Like some have allergies, some don't. Tone of voice is different. Gestures are different, and even gender is different. And you usually have at least one child because there's some point in time where they feel safe. The host personality is supposed to be the correct personality, but it's overwhelmed by the other personalities. The difficult part is finding who the host is. I mean, finding the real you. And sometimes psychologists miss the boat. One thing you have to note on this, a large percentage, I think in the 90s, had severe child abuse. 2/3 of it was incest, sexual abuse. And they had no social support. So they can't stand themselves, so they make up other identities to uh, overcome that or black that out. They are very suggestible. Therefore, new personalities can be added by the psychiatrist if the psychiatrist is not very good. Um, and how do we know we have different identities? Well, thank God we have videotape. So the psychiatrist is talking to the person. He comes in, he's a different person altogether. And that's the only time that the client is aware of the different personalities because they're on tape. Usually a person with DID, and this is where we get the confusion, is have borderline personality disorder, which we'll talk about later, depression, panic attacks and somatoform disorders. And so, you know, this compounds things. They are not conscious of the other alters. I got to make sure you understand that. They're not conscious of the other ego states. And it is much more common in women, 9 to 1. Wow. Okay.